Ethan was 33 when he realized he'd never been truly tested. It wasn't during a crisis. It was a regular Thursday night, after a mediocre workout, sitting in front of a show he wasn't really watching. And while he stared at the screen, seeing nothing, a thought arrived without warning. Everything I've built so far came too easily. Not that Ethan had lived without difficulty, he had. There were tight financial periods, a relationship that ended badly, a job that asked more than he wanted to give. But none of those episodes had ever pushed him to a point where he had to choose between two equally hard paths. He had never been in a situation where comfort wasn't available as an option. And there it was, 11 o'clock on a Thursday night, a series playing in the background he'd stopped watching, Ethan asking himself for the first time in 33 years, what would I do if there was no easy way out? He didn't know the answer, and that not knowing bothered him in a way that took weeks to name. What Ethan had discovered, without having vocabulary for it yet, is that the masculine identity he had built was a comfort identity, not an adversity identity. He knew who he was when things were going well. He didn't know who he was when things became impossible. And that distinction matters more than it sounds. Because comfort identity and adversity identity are not the same thing. They don't overlap. They don't substitute for each other. The identity you build during the years when life cooperates is a construction of who you are when variables are in your favor. It's a conditional identity. Adversity identity is something else. It's what remains when the variables disappear. It's what exists at the core when performance is no longer possible, when the supportive environment vanishes, when there's no one left to impress. Most men never discover this distinction. Not because they're weak or lacking character, but because modern life was very efficiently designed to never demand that they discover it. Viktor Frankl developed a concept from his experience in Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. Frankl observed something disturbing among the prisoners. The ones who collapsed first weren't necessarily the physically weakest. They were the ones who had built their entire identity around external conditions, social position, family, work, recognition. When those conditions disappeared, the core that remained was empty. The ones who survived, not just physically but psychologically, were those who had found something internal, something that didn't depend on external conditions to exist. A purpose, a reason that was theirs and theirs alone. Frankl called it meaning, not happiness, not success, meaning. Ethan wasn't in a concentration camp. His situation was incomparably more comfortable than anything Frankl described, but the mechanism was analogous. Ethan had built an identity that depended on external conditions, the job, the relationship, the gym 3 times a week, the routine that worked. Remove any of those conditions and what remained? He didn't know. And that not knowing was the actual crisis. Not a visible crisis, not one that shows up in numbers or behavior. A silent core crisis. The feeling that if the ground gave way, he wouldn't know where to find his feet. Before we continue, everything you're learning here only works if you execute. And execution is exactly where most people stop. I created a system called the Untamed Mind protocol. 3 tools working together, an ebook that explains the why, an interactive dashboard that organizes your day, and a reprogramming audio that works where knowledge doesn't reach. Link in the description. Now back to the content. Ethan spent 3 weeks with that question. What would I do if there was no easy way out? It wasn't rhetorical. It was an investigation. He started watching his own reactions in moments of minor pressure, not extreme pressure, but the everyday pressures most people use as excuses not to act. He noticed a pattern that bothered him more than anything else. Every time a situation became too uncomfortable, Ethan created an exit. Not a cowardly exit, nothing he was ashamed of. But there was always an elegant justification available. The timing isn't right. I'll wait for more information. This isn't the fight that matters. There's a better way to do this. Each justification intelligent, each one true in some sense, and each one a step backward from the actual discomfort. The name for that isn't cowardice. It's something more sophisticated and harder to fight. It's preventive discomfort management. Preventive discomfort management is the skill, highly developed in intelligent men with reasonably good lives, of detecting the approach of discomfort far enough in advance to create an exit route that looks rational. It's not obvious escape, it's careful navigation. And the problem with careful navigation is that it keeps you out of the situations that build adversity identity. Because adversity identity isn't built by avoiding the hard with elegance. It's built by walking through the hard with no guarantee of arrival. Nassim Taleb explores a distinction in his work on anti-fragility. There are fragile systems, those that break when exposed to stress. There are robust systems, those that resist stress without changing. And there are anti-fragile systems, those that actually get stronger under stress. Ethan's identity was robust, it held, it maintained form, but it didn't grow, it didn't get stronger, it was simply preserved. And preservation isn't growth. Preservation is another name for stagnation, wearing the face of stability. What Ethan had been building all those years wasn't a stronger version of himself, it was a more managed version, more efficient at avoiding what might break the balance. And constant balance in developmental psychology is a sign of absent real challenge, not health. Ethan arrived at this conclusion during a specific moment. He was in a conversation with an older friend, someone who had gone through a bankruptcy, a divorce, and rebuilt from nothing. Ethan asked him what it had been like. The friend was quiet for a moment and then said, "It was the hardest thing I've ever lived through, and it was when I found out who I actually was." Ethan didn't say anything, but he carried that sentence for days. Not the tragedy, the discovery. The idea that there was a version of himself that only existed on the other side of impossible. A version he'd never met because he'd never gone that far. But there's something most men do when they arrive at this realization. When they understand that comfort identity has limits, that preventive discomfort management has a cost. What most men do is look for a shortcut. They look for a controlled challenge. The marathon that's hard but has a defined start and finish, the intensive course that has structure and support, the ambitious project that is challenging within a safe context. Nothing wrong with that, but it needs to be named for what it is, laboratory discomfort. It develops capabilities, not necessarily core. The core forms in discomfort without a net, in the situation you didn't choose and can't fully control, in the decision that needs to be made with no guarantee that it'll work out. Ethan started letting those moments come instead of navigating around them, not seeking tragedy. He wasn't a masochist, but stopping the creation of elegant exits when discomfort approached. The first time was small. A difficult conversation he'd been postponing for 2 months. He had it. It didn't go well. He was uncomfortable for days afterward. And then he was left with something unexpected. The feeling of having done what was necessary without waiting for it to feel comfortable first. That sounds simple. It isn't, because the nervous system is designed to find the fastest exit from discomfort, and the brain is too efficient at building justifications for using that exit. Resisting it isn't easy. It's a muscle, and a muscle never trained atrophies even in intelligent people. The second time was larger. A professional decision that involved real risk, not life-threatening risk, but the risk of failing visibly. Ethan made it, got it partially wrong, made another decision, got it differently wrong. But at the 6th month of doing this systematically, Ethan noticed a change he hadn't expected. Not in external results, in internal results. The voice that said, "There's a better way to do this," had gotten quieter. Not because it had disappeared. It was still there, but because the nervous system had learned through repetition that there was something on the other side of discomfort. Not always success, but always real information, always some level of clarity that came from no other source. Schopenhauer has an idea that appears in various forms throughout his work. Suffering is not a defect of existence. It is the mechanism by which existence deepens. Comfort preserves. Discomfort transforms. Not a pleasant idea, but true in a way you feel in your bones when you stop avoiding the hard and start walking through it. Now I need to talk about a trap that appears here. Because if you're hearing this, and the conclusion you drew is, I need to expose myself to more suffering to grow, that's the wrong interpretation, and it's a dangerous one. The point isn't suffering, it's intentional exposure to what is difficult and true. There's a difference. Passive suffering, what happens to you without your choosing, doesn't build adversity identity. It can destroy, it can also reveal, but it doesn't build systematically. Intentional exposure to the difficult, what you decide to walk through even when you could avoid it, is what builds the core. It's the difference between what happens to you and what you do with what happens to you. Ethan didn't throw himself into extreme risk situations to prove something. He started using his intelligence less as an escape tool. He stayed intelligent. He stopped being strategically avoidant. And he discovered in that process what the older friend had discovered through bankruptcy and divorce, that there was a version of himself on the other side of impossible. Not a perfect version, not one without scars. A real version. You made it here. That already says something about you. Most people open a video about discipline and close it halfway through. You stayed, you listened, you're looking for something real. So I want to show you something I created specifically for people at this point, who know what they want, but still feel like the day ends without the most important things getting done. It's the Untamed Mind protocol, 3 tools in one system. The ebook explains why your mind sabotages you before you even notice, and what to do differently. The performance dashboard opens directly in your browser. No app, no login. You set your intention, your 3 priorities, use the focus timer, track your habits, do your evening reflection. Everything in one place, working offline. The reprogramming audio is 20 minutes. Listen in the morning or before sleep. It works on the subconscious, where real habits live. Link in the description. If you watched this far, this protocol is for you. And if you're not yet part of the Untamed Mind community, people in the same process, building that core in practice and not just in theory, come. The link is in the description as well. The real version of you exists. You just haven't gone far enough to meet it yet. Go!